Brethren and companions, welcome to this week's edition of the Thank Goodness It's Friday video blog. Coming up, we have an interview with Peter Rhodes, the Provincial Charity Steward, who talks about the wonderful work that has been going on during the lockdown and also about the 2025 festival. But first, a roundup of the news this week and what's happening next week. The advert is now out for the Great Provincial Boat Race that is happening in May. Depending on the weather, we intend to live broadcast the event on Facebook on our closed page, as well as broadcasting some live drone action. Don't forget that the money raised will go towards supporting the 2025 festival. Hopefully, you will have seen the video footage of the two fire engines that London Masons have bought for the London Fire Service. Both vehicles have elevated platforms that are now the highest in Europe. I have to say, they are simply breathtaking when you see what they can do. On Tuesday next week, the United Grand Lodge of England are hosting a webinar which is titled Solomon Live, What is Freemasonry? Should be interesting to hear. 2 days later on Thursday, Grand Lodge are also hosting another webinar talk by Dr. Akram Baig, who is an expert on the coronavirus. He will be talking about how it started, where it started, and about the disease in general. This should be very good. And don't forget to keep an eye out for the spring edition of the Provincial Lights magazine that will be published soon. And now, the interview with Peter Rhodes. Peter, thank you for joining us today. Can you tell everyone who you are and what your role is within the province?
It's a pleasure, Richard. Thank you for inviting me. Yes, my role is as the Provincial Grand Charity Steward, and my background is that I was initiated 25 years ago into the Royal Kent Lodge of Antiquity, and having gone through the chair, I then was Director of Ceremonies for a number of years. Having had other roles within the province, I was honoured and delighted to be invited to be the Provincial Grand Charity Steward, which was an interesting departure because it wasn't something that I'd been heavily involved with in the past. Obviously aware of charitable aims and giving and so on and so forth, but once I became established in my role, I soon discovered how much work goes on in the background, both at a provincial level and within the Masonic Charitable Foundation in regards to charitable matters. So it was a steep learning curve, but one which I have found to be extremely interesting.
I know that this is a very busy. I know that this is a very busy and demanding role, which you do well at. So, what is your focus and your ultimate end dream?
Well, it's quite simple, Richard. Is that when you actually see the benefit that is derived from our charitable giving and the difference that it makes to people's lives in a variety of ways, that it's entirely rewarding to see those results.
So, Peter, what motivates you to drive forward time and time again?
Yes, very similar to the last answer, Richard. I think to capitulate sorry, that's the wrong word, to encapsulate the whole picture, really, I would only encourage people when we can to attend the annual awards presentations of the Cornwallis East Kent Freemasons charity, which is presided over by the Provincial Grand Master, where he presents many of the awards which are given throughout the year. And the stories and reports that you receive from the beneficiaries is not only humbling, but very heartwarming, that the benefit to them, to their lives, to their children, whoever it may be, has all been derived from our charitable giving. So that is that is as much motivation, I think, as anybody could possibly want.
Yes, absolutely. So, during the last 12 months and being in COVID lockdown, as a province, how have we been able to help our local communities?
We have, Richard, in a variety of ways, both with support from the Masonic Charitable Foundation and from the Cornwallis East Kent Freemasons charity. We have been able to provide PPE to frontline workers and key workers. We were able to provide tablets, PC tablets to hospitals, so that those that were confined to their beds and weren't able to receive visits from their friends and family were able to communicate with them using those devices. We've supported food banks. There's been support for young carers, for domestic abuse charities. So a lot of things which have actually come to light as being meritorious of support because of the COVID situation and the circumstances that has created. We have been able to help in numerous ways, and that support continues. The COVID fund, which the Masonic Charitable Foundation started, reached £1 million. That was matched by £1 million from the Masonic Charitable Foundation, and those funds are being distributed even as we speak. So we have assisted in numerous ways, and it's very gratifying to see the benefit that has been yielded from that.
And so, tell me, what has people's reactions been like? Sort of the recipients of a lot of the funding.
Tremendously grateful, Richard. Absolutely, many letters of thanks for the support. Many of the recipients, particularly the charities, have had an extremely difficult time over the last year or so because their fundraising activities have been severely curtailed. So they've been absolutely overjoyed with the support that we've been able to provide them, and I can only see that's a win-win. That's a positive for Freemasonry in the public eye, and obviously for those charities that are able to continue their extremely valuable work.
So would it be fair to say that whilst we have been in lockdown and prevented from meeting one another, that Freemasonry has never stopped working in the background?
Absolutely, you've hit the nail on the head, Richard. Whilst we've not been able to carry out our regular meetings and get-togethers and social activities, there's been a huge amount going on. You could say behind the scenes, but equally there've been a number of very positive stories which have made the press and also social media. So it's been a very busy and rewarding time.
Absolutely fantastic. So let's talk about the festival, if we may. How are we doing?
Yes, we had a terrific start. We had a fantastic launch at the provincial meeting in April 2019, and a number of we carried out seminars, launch seminars for all of the charity stewards throughout the province, 8 different venues, and as I say, we got off to a fantastic start. Things have been extremely difficult over the past 12 months, naturally, because our income stream has somewhat diminished because we haven't obviously held meetings where we would have made collections, gift aid envelopes, and so on and so forth, and hence the recent communications which the festival chairman Mark Basson has been sending out, encouraging those brethren and companions who haven't already signed up to regular giving to do so. And that really is the secret, I think, of the success of the festival will be regular giving. And I would heartily encourage all those that can, please do set up a regular donation, because little and often is the key. And to use my old adage, by the inch it's a cinch, but by the yard it's hard. So don't leave it to the last minute to put yourself under pressure and, you know, do something which you might find difficult. Let them off and is the key.
Yeah, that's very good words of advice. So, what about events? Have we got many events coming up and many events planned?
Well, yeah, we have. We naturally have had to reschedule many of the events which were planned, you know, which would have been the traditional get-together events, such as dinner and dances, outside events, and so on and so forth. But that being said, you know, we're well aware that now that the lockdown is starting to ease and our restrictions will be lifted, that I'm sure that many people will still be a little reluctant to perhaps get back to life immediately the way that it was before. So we're planning a number of virtual events, and the first one has recently been announced, which is the East Kent Provincial Boat Race. And you know, watch this space, because over the coming months there will be several other virtual events which we're going to carry out, which obviously everybody can take part in. It all helps to raise money for the festival. And next year, once we hopefully get beyond this current situation, and let's just hope that life does get back to some sort of normality, you know, we can carry on with our other events that we had planned where we can physically get together.
Okay, thank you. So let's change tack a little bit. So let's talk about you. Are you married? Do you have family? Have you got any pets? Any hobbies? Anything that we don't know about you?
Changing tack, no pun intended with regard to the boat race. But yes, I'm happily married to Shirley. We celebrate our silver wedding anniversary later this month. And we have two children, Rebecca, who's now past university stage and is working for Kent County Council. And our son, Edward, is in year 10 at secondary school. So he's embarking upon his GCSEs over the next year or so. So busy family life. I'm still working full time, so that adds to the general commitments that I have, as well as Freemasonry with a busy family and working life. We have a new addition to the family, which is a four-legged feline called Ziggy. He's only 9 months old, and he certainly keeps us on our toes. He's very lively, and as you can imagine, with a young cat, he's into everything that he shouldn't be. I did think about your question about is there anything that perhaps people might not know about me, but I must admit I struggled to find an answer for that. So let's skip over that one.
Well, I know something about you, Peter, that probably many people wouldn't know. And that's your brother, who works for that terrible outfit called G4 something or other.
Absolutely, yes. Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because he obviously, not obviously, but he is a Freemason. He actually joined before I did. He was a serving Royal Marine, and he joined a Royal Marine Lodge in Devon. But as many of the brethren and companions know, our late father was a very active Freemason and a very keen pianist and organist who's very well known in the province. And it's in the blood, because his father was a Freemason. My maternal great-grandfather was also a Freemason, so one could say that it's in the blood.
Yes, indeed. Actually, I didn't realise that your brother was already a Freemason, because, as you know, I met him when we were both working up at the Olympics, and I managed to talk to him a few times, but so I never realised he was a Freemason. But is he still working for G4S?
He is, yes. He's been extremely busy lately, because one of his projects has been to manage some of the hotels at Heathrow, where the people that are returning from overseas have to quarantine before they're allowed to go back to their homes. So, as you can imagine, that's been an extremely pressurised situation. But no, next time I speak to him, I'll pass on your regards, Richard.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. And finally, is there, I tend to ask a lot of people this question. Is there any one thing in the world, if there was one thing that you could change, what would it be?
Yeah, so that is a really good question and quite difficult to answer, because I think it's one of those situations where you'd like to have perhaps 2 or 3 wishes, and eradication of COVID would obviously be one of the ones. But I think as history has probably shown us that in the past, when we've had these horrible health pandemics, the world has recovered and we move forward. So I just think personally that peace and world stability is what I would wish for. I just think because society has become a little intolerant, and some of the things that you see on the news, and both in this country and around the world, is quite disheartening. And just with a little bit more goodwill and compassion, the world could and would be a much better place.
Yes. So what you're saying then, what you're saying then, Peter, is the fact that people should join and become Freemasons.
Absolutely, certainly if they followed our sort of ethos and purpose, that would be a very good blueprint for good society. Absolutely.
Well, Peter, that's the end of we've come to the end of the interview now. So I'd just like to say a big thank you for joining us and telling us a little bit more about yourself.
It's a pleasure, Richard. Thank you for your time too, and all the very best.
Brethren and companions, that is it for this week's edition of the Thank Goodness It's Friday video blog. If you want to contact me, you can do so on the following email address. And until next week, take care, stay safe, and don't eat too many Easter eggs.